Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Uncorked with Funny Wine Girl. This is Funny Wine Girl, aka Janine Luby. And if you listened to last week's minisode, and if you didn't, that's okay. I don't blame you. May has 5 Thursdays in it, so I just did a quick little minisode that I just shared some thoughts, and I did share that this is an exciting month for me because it's the anniversary month of my podcast. This is the 4th year. I am so excited, and I have big ideas for next year's 5-year celebration. I do plan on doing something in person that I'm talking to a couple of women who've been guests, and I think it's just going to be really exciting and an opportunity for people to join together in person. For those of you who may or may not have listened to last week's minisode, I mentioned that this podcast, as I've said numerous times, is to amplify the voices of women. I want my listeners to learn about these fabulous women, to get inspired, informed, entertained. But there is one person in my life who always has a pass to be a guest, and he's a dude. And he's also my number one fan. So he's a supportive friend, and those are often hard to come by. I'm blessed to have him in my life. And I say he is welcome anytime, and he is this week's guest because he has had some big changes happen in his life, and I know they're very relatable to everyone, or I think everyone has been through what he's going through looking for a job. Most of our lives, we've experienced this at least once or twice. So without further ado, it's my number one fan and wonderful friend, Oliver Order, as I like to call him. Ollie, welcome, Ollie.
Thank you, Janine. Thank you for letting me be an honorary guest as always, and always welcome here. I appreciate it. It's been a while since I've been a guest, but I can't believe 4 years. Zoom went by fast, didn't it?
4 years. It is hard to believe. And I've had to sit here and pull out my hand and do the math on my hand and go, wait, what year did I start? 2021. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. And I wasn't your first guest technically. I was your first full guest, maybe we can say, because I think Tina has that honor to be the first slide down the pole. It was, I believe, the name of it. But I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. But 4 years ago, I remember what your first episode was titled. So it's exciting to be back. I know I've been on a lot talking about fun things, music, movies, Madonna.
Yes.
So it's fun to be back. So thank you for letting me back and inviting me. And you know I have your back on everything. So I'm here to support you.
I appreciate that, Oliver. And, we have talked about a lot of fun things like movies, because I should say, if you haven't heard that episode, Oliver and I spoke the one time about, he is a huge fan of movies, like big time, especially gets excited about the Oscars. And we've talked about that. We talked music. Okay, Madonna is all I need to say. And we've talked about that, of course, Oliver loves Madonna, but he loves all kinds of music. And that's been a big part of his life too, and very important part of his life. But we've talked about serious topics as well. Oliver was kind enough to share his coming out story and the value and importance of music in his life at that point, and the positive influence that Madonna had. But we've also talked about serious issues and the fact that Oliver was diagnosed with Parkinson's. So today we're going to just talk about, I shouldn't say just, I'm trying to remove that word from my vocabulary because it's an evil word. It minimizes. Today we're going to talk about Oliver's recent change in life. He and his husband were living in North Carolina, which I will selfishly say I'm going to miss those visits, because when I went to visit for the week, I was like holding court. I was like, okay, this is what I want for breakfast. This is what I want for dinner. No, not quite like that, but Jim and Oliver treated me so well, and it was like staying at a bed and breakfast, and it was a great time. But Oliver and his husband, Jim, have moved from North Carolina, where they lived for a few years, and they're back in Pennsylvania, where Oliver's from. That's how we know each other, obviously. I shouldn't say obviously, because if you're hearing this and you're like, I don't know who the hell these guys are, Oliver is someone I went to high school with. We got to become friends when we were in the basement of Bishop Hannon at our lockers. And
that made it sound like a horror movie, when we were in the basement.
I said, shh, here, let's get inside the locker. He'll never find us in here. Yeah, I know. It's like we were in we were in the basement and we heard a creak. It was running water. Heyo. Oliver had opened up his locker door, and there was a photo, of course, or a glossy picture of Madonna. And I'm like, I like Madonna, or something to that effect. And we became
If that
friends.
was your voice, we would not be friends now.
I know. It was probably like, I like Madonna. I don't know what the hell I sounded like. The 14-year-old Janine didn't really have a voice. Thank God I finally formed my voice. It only took me into like my 30s and 40s. But anyway, that's how I know Oliver from high school, and we've remained friends. And he's a dear, dear friend. And he's from Pennsylvania, and he's returned home to Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. So I want to ask you, this obviously is a big change. And I said before, it is something I'm sure a lot of people go through where they are relocating. You're back in Pennsylvania, but there's a lot to do with relocating. You own a home in North Carolina. You have to figure out where you're going to live here now, what the future looks like. You've got to find a job. Your husband has a job, and that's kind of why you guys moved, for him to take a new position in his career. So where do you want to start? How has this been? This is a lot of change at once.
Oh my goodness, it is. Sometimes it's hard to think of where I want to start, but we can start when we were 14 years old. No, I'm kidding.
And you came up to me with that bizarre voice, and I said, "Back in the locker, bitch."
Please don't talk to me ever again. No. So yes, it's amazing to me. Like I was saying about how 4 years zoomed by, but goodness, what were we? 14 years old, and now I'm 54. I know you're younger than I am for a little bit. But how that time has zoomed by as well. And it's just amazing to me, but so grateful that you're still in my life and that we communicate, if not daily, weekly, through texts and funny messages through Instagram or whatever. So I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate you. It's been a big change in my life. I'm not going through menopause.
You're not going through the change?
And I'm not going, I have no idea what that feels or involves there, but the changes that we've gone through have been stressful and big, and some things happened. You do one change, like get a job or you move, let's do it all together, kind of adds a little bit extra stress. So yeah, we were in Raleigh, North Carolina for 2021. We moved down, and then we bought a house. And Janine, you can still visit there now because no one has made an offer on the house yet. So it's all yours. It's just all packed up. So go ahead and enjoy. And if you'd like to put in an offer, please contact our realtor. But we're hoping to get some, yes, we do too. Because with all the changes, I never really, I'm not a big money person. My mom was a manager of a bank, credit union. So like I know how to budget my money and I have everything, but it has been stressful for the first time in my life, but having that cloud of, cash, where's the cash going to come from, especially when the house hasn't sold. So anyway, we were down there for 3-4 years. Jim was working, thriving in a job. And we knew that his next step would be a manager position somewhere. And we knew that it wasn't going to be local. So when he was looking, I was like, obviously we'll be moving. So it wasn't like it was all of a sudden thing overall. The final move was kind of real quick. But that was always in our mind. In fact, like I had a full-time job that I was doing well with. I didn't necessarily love the position or the job or what it entailed, but it was still a good income. I was working with good people, and I did enjoy some aspects of it. And I knew that because they have a policy now of no remote work, that I wouldn't be able to continue working there. So even though it was in the back of our heads that something was happening, when it finally happened, one of the discussions was, I'm not going to have a job. And, we had that was one of the deciding factors. They did try to keep me remote, but it was poo-pooed. So we relocated. Jim actually moved up here because we're in Raleigh, and now we're, as Janine said, the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, which I've seen Madonna here many times. So, and Phillies games and everything, because growing up in Scranton, we used to come here all the time. So it's unfamiliar, but yet familiar to me. So it hasn't been too too much of a. I feel like I'm back at home and I hit every pothole on the street. Um,
Welcome to Pennsylvania.
Welcome to Pennsylvania. Every state has its bad areas and bad roads, but boy, Pennsylvania does rank up there, I must say.
Yeah, yeah, that's a common problem.
So Jim got the position. It happened quickly. One of the factors too, like over Christmas, my dad came to visit us, who lives in Bloomsburg area, so in Pennsylvania, and came to visit for 5 days. Ended up spending a month and a half because he got ill, had pneumonia, was in the hospital twice. And during that transition, then that's when Jim was like, "Oh, hey, real quickly, I have this offer to move to Philadelphia." And I was like, okay. And it was all in the midst of all of that happening. So we had the conversation about, I'm probably going to be unemployed. Okay, we'll deal with that. And then I'm like, with everything going on with my dad, my sister being like 7 or 8 hours away, I knew how stressed that made her feel when my dad was in the hospital. I didn't want to feel that again. So that was kind of like, that kind of sealed the decision that I want to be a little bit closer to my family. I'm still 2.5 hours from them, but it's a lot closer to 8. I can go up in a day if needed. Not that he's ill now, thankfully. I talked to him yesterday. He's doing great.
Good. Is he
Um,
getting ready to golf?
he's already been out golfing. He
Wow,
won the last
good.
2 games. His league started on Thursdays 2 weeks ago, so they've golfed twice. And yeah, he seems to be doing very well. He recovered. So the pneumonia that he had is clearing up, and all the ailments that came along with it have been clearing up. So, but that was a deciding factor as well. That was like kind of like that kind of sealed it. Like it's the right decision for us to make. So Jim moved down earlier because his job had to start like February 2nd, and my job was, I'll say they were gracious enough to let me stay as long as possible, but also I was helping them out as well. So it was kind of like two-sided there. Like I was there to train my replacement, which is rare for that company, I think. And because for someone leaving the company, if they're there, it's another, obviously if it's an employee that's there, they're going to train and keep the position there. But because I was leaving, I trained them, I stayed, they paid me. I tried to get as many paychecks as I could before I left. But that 2 months where Jim was here and I was in North Carolina was difficult as well. Packing up the house was difficult. I'm a mean machine. I can pack a house in as quickly as you want me to, but it's the older I get, the tougher it gets.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of stress. So those 2 months were not great. I only got to come up maybe twice, I think, until I finally was up here permanently April 4th. Like I said, our house hasn't sold. It's all packed up. We have the movers ready to go and bring it. And we have a sublet now, but we had to find an apartment. We couldn't buy a house here because we didn't sell our house. So it's been a lot. but
Yeah, that is a
we're
lot.
here now. But we're here now. So
Yeah. Let me ask you, I know you mentioned about your company and they did have some remote positions and then of course, and there's people with different opinions about that and I've talked to different people who are like, oh, people should be back in the office. No, I have heard people say that and it's like then you have other people who are like, no, I really thrive with the flexibility that being remote gives me. And I mean, for me personally, like, and because I work for myself, I make the call, but like I feel like hybrid is almost perfect to some degree because for me, I spend time at home, but I love being out too at events and doing things. But what I wanted to ask you is I know we had talked about this at one point because you have Parkinson's. If there was any kind of way that they could make a special case, or if you could argue that listen, with mobility or different issues that might come up, that you could maybe, I don't want to say force their hand, but I don't know, did you look into that at all to kind of like push that and say, listen, I have a disability, or you didn't want to go there?
I did. And that was before Jim had got the job. They had a listen, they went from being 100% remote during COVID and during 2 years that I worked there. I worked there for almost 4 years, a complete 4 years that I was in North Carolina. The only reason I did leave is because I relocated, and that was really it. I would have stayed and done the job, remotely. They have remote workers, so it was a little bitter to know that like half the team, or at least 30% of the team that I worked on, were remote, but yet they wouldn't let me stay remote because that was the future of the company. They wanted hybrid. Their hybrid is 4 days in the office. That's not hybrid to me. 3-2 would
Mm-mm.
be hybrid, but
Yeah.
you know, splitting hairs there, I guess, or arguing with the wrong people or preaching to the choir. Every business is different. You're right. I think our management now, or their management now, is I have to remove myself from them. Excuse me. Is more in office, collaborate, all that stuff. And I get it, but also we survived how many years collaborating online successfully. But I wasn't going to argue. But the Parkinson's came in a little bit earlier. Well, I was diagnosed before I actually moved to North Carolina, and then was treated this whole time. I've gone to 3 or 4 different neurologists now, and they come up with the same diagnosis. So I've been diagnosed 3 times now. So I guess they
Third
got it
time's
right
the
the first
charm,
time.
right?
I guess so. So I'm like, woohoo, you were right. So I did try to. The reason why they split when they brought people back to the office, they split up the parking. They didn't have enough parking space in their tower parking lot, so they had to have another parking lot, and they were forced people there. And I'm like, I can still walk. Like I have tremors in my whole left side of my body, and it's annoying. And some days are worse when I'm stressed. It gets a little bit more agitated. So I just wanted to be able to park in the office building in case I was having a bad day. And to go through that, they had to do like a change of a light or something form that I had to go through HR. So it started the process of me going to my doctor, getting all the signatures. But then my dad got sick in December, and then that was the priority. I never followed up with that, and I never went back to it because by that time Jim was like, "Hey, I have this job. We're moving." I'm like, "Okay." Well, to me it was like, I guess I can continue that and then tell them, but I'm more of an upfront person. I was just like, look, this is the situation, because my boss, who was completely supportive and tried to get me to stay as much as possible, like, she's like, did you try I was like, I'm not going to try the doctor. Like, why? I'm not going to fight that fight now. Like, because I don't feel it's going to come out the way we want. So
Hmm.
why waste that energy? But so I did try to do that. I hate to do that. The doctor did give me like a handicap little thing for my car in case like I could do. I hate using that because I feel like I'm taking away from someone that really needs that spot. But at least I have that option to use it if need be. So,
Yeah.
so I did try that route, but because of everything that happened, and everything happens for a reason, as my mother would always say, um, it just didn't. I didn't continue with that, and I left it as is. And we'll see what happens in the future with doctors because now I'm in the midst of finding new doctors and getting that all set up and continuing my health as much as the moving, as much as the job search.
Yeah. One thing I will say is you're in a good place. Like, just like when you were in Raleigh, there was a lot of wonderful, I mean, my gosh, you're not far from Chapel Hill and all, Duke, all those places down there that, you hear a lot of good things about. And in Philadelphia, I think you're in a good place because I can tell you, everyone I talked to here in Scranton, Northeast PA, that's exactly where they're going for surgeries or any kind of specific care that unfortunately we do not have enough good specialists in healthcare here in northeastern Pennsylvania. And I can tell you myself, I'm very underwhelmed with the answers I've gotten recently. But my point is to focus on you, that hopefully, with Thomas Jefferson there and like University of Pennsylvania, that you will be able to find really good specialists who will be able to give you the proper care and hopefully the best care. The one thing I just wanted to follow up on too, though, about it's unfortunate that companies like this are so stringent because, and again, this is our belief, right? We're not running the company, but you're right. I believe a hybrid situation, 4 days in the office isn't hybrid. That's, you know what I mean? I think 3 and 2 is more reasonable. And, it's unfortunate. And I've again read this on LinkedIn posts and different, and I've heard it, hashed out in person in different meetings and different, I should say, gatherings with business people. It's a shame to be so stringent when you're going to lose a good employee. You know what I mean? It's like, especially in a situation like this where clearly they still have people working remotely, and to not give you that option, it's just unfortunate because you are a good employee. So they're losing you. That's the bottom line. So, but I think, it all comes down to the bottom line. I don't know their full story, but they did have real estate there in North Carolina, right? So they have all this office space, and you're certainly not going to let it go to waste. So, in my opinion, it's like, okay, that's interesting, but what about what is truly best for productivity with your employees and work-life balance? So, I don't know, just something that we're not in charge, so we're not running the show there, right?
Right. And they did have the real estate, just to answer that, they built a brand new office in a very nice area, and it was a beautiful building, and it didn't open because of 2020 and the pandemic. So it was just an empty space there until 2 years, and then they were like, "Okay, come back once a week." Then it was 3 times a week, and then they were like, "No, this is the way it's starting." And then now they're not hiring anything. They're hiring hybrid. They're not hiring anyone remote now. That's not even an option. So that was why I again couldn't keep the position, because they don't want anyone that was hybrid to become remote. They do say every case is different. Um, the fact that I was going because my husband was promoted. I didn't want to stop his career. That didn't matter. It didn't matter that I was moving closer to be with my dad, who was sick for 2 months with us. That didn't matter. So they were pretty stringent.
Yeah.
Whether I was a good employee or not, you can look at my reviews, and yes, I was. But I'm not. If that came across as bitter, I'm not bitter about it. It was a little bit of a, because I think I knew going ahead when I told my boss. I was like, I have a feeling where this is going, but I'm just being upfront with you, and we'll see what happens. But I would like to stay, is how I worded it. And they tried as much as they could, but I think I knew going in, so I wasn't bitter. I wasn't mad. I understand the policy. I don't necessarily agree with it, but
Yeah.
as you said, we're not the CEOs. We're not running the company, so
Yeah.
I no ill feelings towards them at all. It would have been nice though to have a job. It would have made the transition a little bit easier.
Yeah, yeah. And so let's talk about, for in case there is anyone listening who is in the hiring world and that could even offer a lifeline here, or I won't say a lifeline,
Shameless
but
plug.
yeah, shameless plug alert. No, but seriously, they could be getting, I'm helping them. Let's look at it that way. I'm helping them get a good employee. So tell me about your expertise and what you're looking for.
Well, I'm looking for a full-time job that pays around what I was making. Um, but my life has been in supply chain pretty much, and inventory management. So I've started off as a retail manager and worked my way up from the retail manager to a store analyst to a merchandise planner to an inventory planner to an inventory analyst. Always working with all of that type of stuff within the supply chain. Um, so that's my wheelhouse. It's not something that I think, ooh, I can't wait to dive into inventory management. But I've grown to, it's what I'm comfortable with, and I think I'm good at it. I understand it, and I would love to continue that career path. But I've also opened it up to, like, I would love to change a career too. Like if there's something that popped up that said, ooh, I can do that. I'm not finding a lot of job listings that are welcoming that.
Mm,
It's more like we require you, because there's usually like qualifications, what you'll be doing in your job, the qualifications, what you're required. And sometimes it'll say preferred, but then there's a word that they use, required. And I've been looking at that a little bit more than I did when I first started applying to jobs, because I was like, if anything said inventory, I was like, goop, goop, applied. you know. But so that's my wheelhouse. That's what I'd like to stay in. But I'm open to expanding that and I'm very detail oriented. I'm very good at communicating. And those are my strongest points, I think. And so if that's whether in the inventory management or somewhere else, if they want to take a chance on a 54-year-old man, that'd be great. If not, I'll flip hamburgers somewhere and do something eventually. But
well, and there's nobility in every position. And I will say, so a couple
absolutely.
things there. You are absolutely, I can vouch for Oliver, incredibly organized. His skills of organization are impeccable, detail oriented completely. I used to always kind of laugh only because it's so different from me, and seeing your alphabetized everything in your house, your music, your DVDs, you're neat
All
as a
the
pin.
refrigerator labels out
Yes, you are as
until
neat
my
as a
husband
pin.
touches them. But
Yeah, I'm more like your husband. As I've told the story before, first time visiting, I take down the hardware that holds the curtains in the bedroom. I'm like, okay, there goes that. Then I use your gluten-free toaster. I'm like, there goes that. Like, she is just a pig pen, this woman. She comes in
oh,
and makes
did
a
you do
mess.
something? Wasn't there a
Oh
third
yeah,
thing?
I did. I set my suitcase down
Oh,
and
right.
opened it up and like completely effed up your paint job in your brand new house. Thankfully, you and your husband were lovely about that. Very gracious. But
Are you kidding? Jim was in there with a screw gun and paint in like 5 minutes.
he's like, "Don't worry, those were weak. Those were weak anyway. Those hinges." I'm like, Yeah, I was like swinging off the curtains there and brought them right down.
We still joke
Um,
about it though. We'll always be like, "Are these Janine proof?"
Not really. As I've already said to Oliver, I'm like, I don't care whether you're in an apartment or a loft, a one room. I'm like, hey, guess who's here?
Yeah. Right now we're in a sublet apartment from the reason why the move was so quick was like Jim took a job from someone that wanted to move to the Raleigh store, and he wanted to move and take a demotion to be closer to her family, and he was open to moving. So that's why it kind of happened quick. So even though we had an idea that Jim's next move would be a manager position in a different city, it happened quick because of that transition. So we're subletting her apartment until May 15th, well, May 30th, but we're actually moving out May 15th. We got a new apartment. So I'm actually sitting on the floor right now. There is a couch behind me. If anyone can see, if anyone watching this video can see, that is a couch. But I'm sitting on the floor just because, and if there's an echo, that's why, because we didn't really move a lot of stuff here. We moved the essentials. The rest of the stuff is all packed up in boxes and ready to be shipped from the movers that are picking it up later this next weekend, actually. So.
Yeah, but my point is you can't outrun me. You can't limit your life. You can't minimalize because I'll be like, I brought my own blankie, I brought my own pillow, and I will sleep on the floor in front of the fridge.
You know you're always welcome, but I would say like don't come now. We'll be gone a week. Go to North Carolina and we have better accommodations down there
I
in the
love
house.
that. You're always welcome, but don't come now.
Don't come down. Well, I would never say that, but literally, like it's a like the one bedroom. We only have the one bed. The one bedroom is, excuse me, all boxes. So it's not a good welcoming apartment.
I know, but I will be visiting once you get into that new apartment, so I don't
Yes, we
care
will,
what
and that's
I
all
don't care
brand
what you
new.
have.
It's shiny and new, like a virgin.
Ooh.
So we're excited about going into there. And I mean, we wanted the house, but unfortunately, our home did not sell. The market was not in our favor. The odds were not in our favor, and we have had some trouble selling the house. So that's why we couldn't buy a house. Unfortunately, with me out of work, Jim has a very decent, good salary, but it wasn't enough for him to buy a house on his own and me tag along. So that's the transition we're in for as far as living here. So, but again, all that was kind of known before we made the decision. Although we really did think the house would sell quicker,
Yeah.
but maybe it was priced wrong. Maybe it was the wrong time of year. Who knows? Hindsight is 2020. We'll figure that out when we can look back at it. But as of right now, this is where we find ourselves in. So
So let me ask you. So for folks, again, I just want to say, so inventory management. Obviously, I do want to say it helps if you like. You're good at your job. You have great skills for it, but it does help if you kind of like the subject matter too. So it's like I think when you were doing it for the in your previous life, when you worked for many years for FYE, you love entertainment, you love music, you love movies. So that certainly, I don't think that certainly helps, right? If you like the product, but you don't have to. But it would be kind of cool if you did.
what I learned was I moved from selling music and entertainment and pop culture items to car parts. Um, Not my wheelhouse at all. I think I've used wheelhouse now a few times. I don't know why. Maybe it's
Because of the auto parts.
oh, wheel auto, very good. But what I learned was that it helps. It makes you more passionate about it. Um, but it's not necessary for the inventory aspect. Like I could never be a category manager that buys the product that sells, like brings in like something that says, "Aren't you excited about this new brake pad?" No, I'm not. But let me allocate it to stores. Let me bring it into the DCs. Let me see how it sells. Let me get like that's. I can do that with anything. Like a widget is a widget, regardless of what it is. Correct. I was more at home in my previous life, where I spent almost 25 years with them. But I can adapt. And
Yeah.
that's why. And a lot of my cover letters have been like, because this one job I applied for was for like helium, like to make sure the stores had enough helium. I'm like, although I've not worked in the helium industry, I'm sure, like, and I wanted to put some sort of pun about gas and stuff, but I was like, no, I'll just, I believe in humor, but sometimes I have to curb it in cover letters and resumes. So I believe, like, correct. So inventory management, regardless of what the product is, like, I've had a lot of calls or interviews with some, like, buying parts to build something like, again, not something I necessarily would do or I'm interested in outside of a job. But as long as it's dealing with the inventory portion of it or the supply chain, it really doesn't matter what it is, you know.
Yeah.
It's more
And
exciting to talk about. Well, some people don't get me wrong. Some people love talking about cars. And there were those passionate people that I worked with that did. And I loved that. And I learned a lot about stuff I thought I never would. Um, and I think that's great too, because you expand your knowledge of things you wouldn't know. But like when so passionate about pop culture and music and movies, like it was just so easy. Like it was like, oh, I love this. Oh, I can't wait for this. Let's see how this sells. I wasn't as enthusiastic with the other elements or other parts or other items that I sold, but I still did the same job. Like I didn't do less of a work because it was something I didn't love. So
yeah.
so I can adapt. I can adapt to anything.
Yeah, and that makes sense. That's something kind of along the lines of what when I did teach part time at King's, when I was teaching like the fundamentals, I say, it doesn't matter if you, because, of course, you have some students who are like, oh, I want to work for ESPN or, they had their dream jobs. It's like, it doesn't matter because you do have to learn and you have to get jobs, right? And you have to, everything's an opportunity. But, I would say to them, if you learn the fundamentals, that's the key, right? Learn how to communicate well, the writing, speaking, all of these things. So you can write and be in the healthcare industry, even though maybe you don't love that, but like the basics are always going to be important. So it's like get into that, you could write about healthcare, you can write about sports, excuse me, you could write about anything if you can do it well. So you've learned those skills. So it doesn't necessarily matter what the product is, but you know what you're doing. So I think that's really important. I liked what you posted. We'll wrap up the conversation about job searching or job hunting, and then I want to ask you a little bit about Philadelphia, and then we'll wrap up. But you had a post yesterday, I think, on LinkedIn, which I thought was great because I do find that a lot of people in the same boat. It's nice when they see a post from someone else. It's like, oh, okay, that's hopeful. A lot of people, I'm sure, out there are looking for jobs right now or transitioning in their careers. I liked the little, like, you had a nice 4 or 5 neat points of some things that you've learned. So if you don't mind sharing those, I really like them.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for looking at it. My LinkedIn it says I get views, but a lot of those are bots,
Mm.
which is frustrating. One aspect I've learned on LinkedIn. And yesterday was literally 30 days from the last day of work to like yesterday. So I was like, this is a good time. I do try to post something once a week just to you never know who's going to view. Although I get bots view me a lot, there are real recruiters out there and there are ex-coworkers that can repost it and share and all that stuff. So the value is there. And I try to do it once a week. I'm not a big poster on social media. I'm not a big networker, as you know. If I can shy away from people and hide in a cave for the rest of my life and just do a
Mm.
job that way, I would. Janine would yell at me and say, listen to the birds. I'd be like, no. Um, so do try to post. And yesterday I thought, I don't think they were like, it wasn't meant to be like this. It was not like saying, hey, try this to people that are looking for a job. It was more like, this is what I found so that people that read it like know what I'm going through, but also if someone's looking for a job, you know, or start a conversation about, oh, well, you did this, try this. So basically what I found is that I even forget what the 5 points were. But what were they, Janine? Well,
I
like,
can name my two favorite that I
well, I know
commented
your
on.
two favorites were networking and keeping a sense of humor about
Yes.
things. But the one thing I remember what the first one was I hinted at this earlier, like when I was starting to apply for jobs, and I started long before I moved here, right? Like in February, I was sending out resumes. It was tricky because I had to update my resume. I didn't have a computer. Jim had it here, so like I was updating on my phone, and like I was all those crazy things. So I've been applying for a while, but it wasn't until I got here did I like feet to the ground, off running. And that's when I like updated resumes. When I learned I had to change like my resume to fit the job and change the cover letter. So it literally takes to apply for one job is like an hour's worth of work, sometimes more, depending on the applications and such. So it's very time consuming. So I was applying to everything that's at inventory. And I realized that I needed to start looking at that preferred and required element of their jobs to know where I should, they're requiring this particular system. I've never even opened that system or looked at that system. Why am I bothering it, that job? Some might say, no, you should apply. You never know. They might train you. for now, I dwindling it down, and I got better results. I got more bite by focusing my cover letter and my resume to that specific job where I literally had the requirements checked. So that was the first one that I thought was important. The second one is networking. Like, Janine knows that I don't like to talk to people. And I
Yes, and
say
I'm
that
always like, networking is so important.
it is. And I haven't gone out to like physically outside to network myself or walk around with a business card or anything like that or go to events. But I have reached out to people like through LinkedIn or through, you know, everyone in my Rolodex. For those youngsters out there, know what a Rolodex is.
Rolodex.
Um, but
Let me
like I
say,
have,
I'm just going to interrupt real quick.
sure,
And I
sure.
did pull up your post, so if you need help, but yeah, the first one was clarity is key, which I think is a really valuable point because you're right. You can't just, it doesn't make sense to just like, I mean, for some people that really don't care or they're like really in a pinch, do the huge broad search. But if you want to find something that's right for you, yeah, clarity is key.
Yeah.
I like that you said kind of making it more intentional. I think that's really key. That's something I've talked about on the podcast before about various parts of my life, being intentional about so many things. Yeah, I think will produce better results. But the networking, I just wanted to say about this because I know I tease you about, you're like, yeah, I don't really want to go out there and talk to a lot of people, but a lot of people feel that way. And I think sometimes the word networking, it can be scary or disliked, but really, as I've said many times on the podcast that I like to say, it's really about connection. It doesn't even have to be viewed as networking. It's connecting with people and communicating with them. And it's like one of the biggest mistakes, and I don't know if a lot of people still make it, but I've known a couple of people through the years, they'll go to an event like a chambers, happy hour mixer, or I belong to NEPA networkers, and sometimes they do coffee events, sometimes they do evening events. To me, what I see is mistake, and I think a lot of people do think it's a mistake. If you're just going expecting something, like first of all, you can't go with there. I'm going to leave with 5 leads, or I'm going to really just go there. I've been told, I'm going to share some of the points I've been told, go there with a goal. Like, okay, I'm going to meet 3 people tonight, because it is helpful to kind of hold your feet to the fire and make yourself get out of your comfort zone and meet a couple people, but don't expect to leave there with a client, with a job. And also the mistake I've seen is like people just like, hi, I'm Joe Smith. Here's my business card. If you ever need someone, I need a plumber. Now, that's a bad example in a way because I almost feel like the trades can get away with that because if you have a busted up toilet, you're going to pay whatever. And you're like, oh, Joe the plumber, I'm glad I kept his card. But in most cases, I personally don't like to be sold to. So that's something I've seen people do where they just literally make their way around the room, shake hands, and hand out a business card. I don't love that. Like for me, I don't think that's the way to go. It's supposed to be like reciprocal. Like, oh, hi, I'm so and so, and what do you do? And like get to know other people. And again, I'm not saying whether I don't mean like you're doing it wrong. I'm just saying for people who are out there, think of it as just a conversation and getting to know people. And the one thing I will share that I absolutely have learned is that things take time. Now, in your case, you do need to get a job. So I'm not, but I mean, as far as someone like me, I have my own business, and for someone like me, getting clients, these things take time to grow and they take patience. So that's kind of the key. And again, it depends on what you're looking for. But if you are looking to maybe change positions, even like if you're already in a job and you like it, but you want to grow in the near future, or if you're someone with a business and you want clients, it takes time and it takes patience because I've been out there for a long time. And sometimes it's like, person will know me 3 years and they might send a message, hey, you don't happen to write like press releases or new, do you? I'm like, yes, I do. Oh, would you happen to want to take this work on? Yes, I would. So it's being curious, learning about other people, sharing your traits. And I think for me, and then I'll shut up, but I enjoy going out to those things because there are a lot of times I'm not always in the mood to go, but I might run into someone, and rarely, I shouldn't say rarely, but a lot of times it has nothing to do with getting a client. It's learning about something, or someone like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that business existed, or oh wow, that nonprofit's having an event next weekend. That sounds really cool. Like you learn about different things about people, and I just think it's a cool human connection opportunity. So even though networking itself sounds like a dirty word or a bad word. So, okay,
Well,
that's my 2 cents.
that was more than 2 cents, and that was very wide.
I know it was about
That's a dollar
$1.78.
fifty. Um, but it's very insightful as always. And the networking that I've been doing is a little bit different because I'm not going out as of yet. But what I've done is like I've made myself okay, reach out because I'm one of those social media persons that like I won't reach out to a friend and like accept a friend or connect. But like I have on LinkedIn, I'm like, okay, today look through them and see, oh, I've worked with them. Let just send a connect. And if they don't connect with you, then it wasn't meant to be. It was fine. Because you, as you always say to me, you never know what that person is going to do for you in the future or vice versa, what you'll do for them. And you never know if you don't at least try to connect. So I've tried to like make it like, okay, so today 3 people I'm going to reach out to and try to connect. I'm going to apply for 5 jobs. I try to do 5 jobs every day, like, because that's usually rewriting my resume, rewriting my cover letter, and filling out the application and sending it. So it's not like people might say, oh, well, 5, that's easy. You just click easy apply and stay away from easy apply. That's my opinion. I don't think who knows what the algorithms are, right? Like I don't know who sees my resume or who doesn't. That's up for discussion for smarter people that deal with it. But I try to stay away from easy apply because I've noticed the easy applies sometimes aren't on the company website and that position's already been filled, but it's still being posted on LinkedIn. So there's a lot of different tricks and stuff. But as far as networking, reaching out to people through LinkedIn and saying, and I've had like my bosses reach out to me and say, hey, I know people in Philadelphia, so let me look at my Rolodex. They didn't use that term, but since it's stuck in my head, let me look at my contacts and see who, I might be able to reach out. So like that person didn't have to do that, but it's much appreciated. And maybe it wouldn't have happened if I didn't click on her page or reach out to them or so it is worth doing it. It is a lot for me as someone that can be very much so an introvert to like do things like that. But you kind of have to. Like if I ever had that question, oh, I don't want to reach out to this person. I don't want to bother this person. Oh, my friend works in supply chain. Just send her an email. I'm like, oh. But I did. I put my big boy pants on. I was like, it's not going to hurt you. But I'm like, sorry to bother you. Hope this email finds you well, which I know Janine told me not to use that, but I've used that even at work before. But Janine's like, don't use that. That's AI. I'm like, okay.
I know. So I had that conversation with you in mind a couple like last weekend, I think, with we were talking about the goods and the bads, and I won't go too far into this because it's a whole different conversation
It is.
about AI and like how, I said for me, I like, as a writer, as someone who can write and who chooses to write and enjoys writing, I will admit I was in the beginning like that's terrible. I blah blah blah. And then I said, okay, just like every tool, I heard smart people say things like, well, so I think it was this gentleman who actually worked for Boston University. He was doing Alzheimer's research and he had space in Scranton at Urban Coworks. And he made a point that stuck with me. He's like, well, I'm sure there were people that, resist it, maybe like the dishwasher at first. And he's like, wouldn't you rather not do the dishes? And like, I don't have a dishwasher, but, but I get his point. It's like, oh, there's always fear to change. So, now I see that, okay, I can use AI. I might put something in AI to check, like, for writing, usually only to inspire me because I can't think of a word. So I might tweak a sentence, but I have yet to use total AI because and again, like I said, we could talk on that for a long time. And there's so many intricacies and uses. Like kids today could use it. Like, how do you check for plagiarism? I had this conversation yesterday with a gentleman who's taught in college, and we were talking about that. Like how, like the hoops you have to go to check if if they're just using something from AI. And I think for people who want to be lazy, it gives them a really good opportunity to continue to be lazy. But I get, like, my friend's husband said that he's a terrible writer, and he's like a tech guy. He's like, writing is not my strong suit, so he uses it for that. And I don't begrudge anybody. Like, that's great. I just get like concerned when it's plagiarism or when it takes the place of an artist. You know what I mean? Are you going to have someone who's passing off a short story or a whole novel that's like 80% AI? I mean, yes, use it to generate ideas, use it to fine tune something you're writing, but then it gets a little tricky. But yes, big long winded thing to say. I personally cringe when I see LinkedIn posts and emails that go, I hope this finds you well. And I'm like, ugh, just come up with something else. So that's what Oliver's referring to. But hey, if people like seeing that, then that's just me. But yeah, okay.
As a writer as well, I always like an opening statement, and sometimes like I don't just dive right into it. Like a work email is different. Like I'm not saying, "Hey, how are you? Check out." No, I'm just going to dive right into like, "Please look at the below and help me out." Whatever. Um, so, but I have because you said that though, it did make me change it up, and I've started like using better sentences about just kind of an opening line. But with AI, I actually have LinkedIn Premium. I feel like this is an ad for LinkedIn. It's really not. We're not getting paid. Janine's not getting paid by LinkedIn.
No, and I paid for premium and I forgot to undo my subscription. I think I
I
told you
heard
that
that.
because I'm like,
Yeah,
it is pricey and I have it paid to come out all at once and I'm like, shit.
yeah. I did the monthly, so every month I get it, and it will be canceled either when funds run dry or I've found a job. But I will say, like even the post yesterday, because one of the options is rewrite with AI. I click on it because there's an undo. You can revert back to and I copy paste it and I see what they've changed and stuff. Um, I kept some things, but very little. I liked my wording better. Like my humor, I think, comes across better a little bit than how they worded. The humor does not come across strong sometimes the way it's worded, so I change it. So, but I've used it for that regards, like just to give me better words sometimes, because sometimes I'm
Yeah.
like I don't like that word, and okay, their word is better. Okay, I'll use that. But for the most part, it was all me. So
Yeah, no, it was good. And I agree. I'll admit I play around with that myself. And this is not to be like tooting my horn, but I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. Yeah, toot toot. I consider myself to be a good writer, and I have been told that, like, that I've written some really good news releases. And so I do like the way I write, but I do get stuck sometimes and like on a certain sentence and I'm like, oh, this is not coming out how I want it to. And I'll do exactly what you do and I'll be like, oh, okay, I like that word. But usually the rest of it, I'm like, no. And of course, you know me, I talk to my technology. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm trying to say. And so I argue with it. But
yeah,
so your points, we talked about clarity is key. Networking isn't as scary as it sounds. And you talked about being ghosting. Ghosting happens.
yeah. Real quickly, it's just something I didn't realize was as a practice that's used, for lack of better words, more so than it is. But basically, when because you do put it in a pretty, if you're filling out applications and doing your resume and applying for a job correctly, you're putting in at least a good hour, an hour and a half of your time. And not that we expect anything from people, but some of the jobs aren't really real. Some of them aren't have already been filled but are still being posted. So you put all that work in. You try to be as creative. Like I will. I like I said, I tailor my resumes to each job, each cover letter to the job, and then you put all that work in, and then you hear like there's jobs that I've applied to over 150 jobs since I got here because of course I have a spreadsheet of how many jobs and where. A couple with the same company, which sometimes that's great because if you do go to their website, it'll say, "Do you want to use your last resume, like application?" I'm like, "Yes, please." That takes a good 20 minutes out of it. But you don't get responses from. I'd say 50% of the jobs that I've applied for have not responded either way. Like I'd rather them just say, "Thank you, your resume was beautiful, but we're not interested in you. We've moved on with another candidate." I prefer that than nothing
Mm,
because but you get nothing. And even though you try to say, well, it's not personal, it's them, it can weigh on you. And who knows? Like one of the things that I have in my head that I've talked to you about is like I have this vast amount of experience being like, gosh, it's 1995 when I started as a manager, and that's 30 years now in this type of environment, corporate America type of you know work. And that shows my age though. So what's worse, my experience or the old guy's trying to get a job?
yeah.
Because
And
most,
yeah, I'm
yeah,
sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say that's a real problem. And I think I've seen it talked about a lot, but I don't know what the answer is. I feel like in this country, we have all the isms, but ageism absolutely, I believe, exists. And I don't really see anyone being like, we
yeah.
got to stop this.
So again, the ghosting thing is more just like you just don't get response. You can't take it personally. It's still, it bothers me to this day because I'm like, you put in so much time for each resume and application, and you get zipped back. It's very frustrating. So that's something I would love the LinkedIn people or the corporate America people or whoever's hiring to be better. There's even if it's an AI email sent to me saying sorry, and that's what they are. They're all form letters, anyways. There's no personality behind it. I prefer those over nothing.
Yeah, yeah. And to your point, I know someone that I'm close to who was looking for a job last summer, and there's a lot of those, like you said, that are already filled. Like I've heard that a lot about the Indeed jobs that are like out there that have been like filled months ago, and and then there's also the politics of certain organizations where they are maybe required to put something out there, even though they know like Susie from accounting is going to come up to this position. It's like, and they're still posting it. So, and
Yeah,
that's got to be frustrating. Yeah.
yeah, it is. And the one example I've had, and not of ghosting, but of similar, like I interviewed 4 times for one company for a position here, and then like I was one of their top choices, but they hired someone within. It was an internal candidate. So I was like, I almost want to ask before I start the interview process anymore. I actually have an interview tomorrow with the company, which is the first one. But one of my questions is going to be, you know, they can't answer it, I know, but I want them to know that it's in my zeitgeist right now. It's in my train of thought. Like, do you have internal candidates? Because chances are they're going to go with that person that knows their system, knows their company. That's less training that they have to do. And companies want you to be first day go. Like there's really no onboarding anymore. And every company's different. I can't speak to everybody, but so they want, and I understand that. So that's why I'm ready to go. But if you have an internal candidate in mind, I won't be as, I'm still going to do the interview that I need to do to get the job, but to know that is a little bit more understanding of like why I wasn't chosen or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You also mentioned my favorite, of course, is to have a sense of humor about it. Because, you mentioned between rejections and Zoom mishaps and things like that, it can be discouraging. So you have to kind of, take that little laughter break or humor, find the humor so it's not totally weighing you down.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, you know me, I only function with humor. Like I can't help it. Even in my most stress, I try to find some sort of humor about it. Or just you need to take breaks, you need to step away. Like I think yesterday or the day before, I told Janine, I was like, "This is a day I'm not doing any job stuff today because you just need to step away from it because it is a full-time job that pays very little." I think I used that in my little post yesterday on LinkedIn. But humor isn't like I'm having problems with my laptop now. My computer, the camera's not working. Why? I don't know why, and it won't work. But in my head, I'm thinking, well, what if I have the camera? So I'm like on my phone, and Jean's like, "Don't worry, you look fine on your phone." I'm like, "No, I look fat." And Jean's like, "Shut up, you look the same." I'm like, "Oh, so I look fat on the computer." But keeping that humor is like just important because when it comes down to it, and I think this is my last point, you're going to get something's going to happen. Things always work out. You're going to get that job. You're going to get a lot of no's before that one yes. You have to make sure that you're the right fit for the company, but also they're the right fit for you. Like it works both ways. Like, I'm okay with someone saying, you know what, you're just not fitting into the team. I totally get that because I feel sometimes when someone's talking that, I'm like, I already know in my head, I'm like, I'm not going to work well on this team. So I can already make that like it, and it's nothing to do with them personally or anything. It's just a certain vibe. Because listen, there's many different personalities. There's many ways of teams that work. You know how you work. I can adapt pretty well to any team. So it's rare that I'll find that like, oh, can't work with this person. That's rare, but it does happen. And just be open with it and honest with it, because that yes is going to come. You want it to come sooner than later,
Yeah.
but it will come and things will work out. So
You make a really good point there too. And I forget when I heard this, again, I do know a couple folks locally who are like headhunters and, they've offered tips. So I've seen this, but you make a really good point there where it's like, it's okay to not take a job just because it's being offered. Like you could and should be interviewing them as well, because it, like to your point, it may not be the right environment for you. And why take a job if it won't last because you're going to put yourself through, okay, I needed a job, here I am, and I'm miserable, or I don't like this policy, I don't agree with this policy, we're just not meshing. So that is important, that you're both right for one another. And I think that's there's something, to be said for that. You do need to keep that in mind. And you're absolutely right too, that things do work out. You've heard, you're a regular listener of this podcast. I've had people on before talking about manifestation, Megan from Joy World. And so it's something I remember years ago, or I shouldn't say years ago, but when I would first hear about manifestation, I'll admit I kind of poo-pooed it because I'm like, ugh, this hippy dippy warm, whatever, like, oh, I want this. It's just going to pop out of the sky or fall out of the sky, whatever. And it's not that. And I have given it more thought. So I do believe in manifesting things because the opposite of manifesting them, like doing the negative or the negative thought, becomes a barrier. And I feel, for me anyway, I'm saying, like, the way I talk about money, I've been saying that I want to change my relationship. And it is true, because this idea that you can manifest, whether it's a job or, more income or whatever, I do believe in that to a certain degree. Obviously, you can't just sit here, I don't think, 7 or 8 hours a day and go, I want a job, I want a job, I want a job. I mean, if you're not applying, you're not going to, I don't think they're going to come knocking on your door. But it's the language we use and the vibes we put out, because like I said, I realize myself, I don't love administrative stuff. And unlike you, I am not organized at all. So when I get a client who's like, oh, we would like to hire you to come, for our wellness, presentation to our employees, just, send us an invoice or an agreement or whatever. I have found myself sitting down going, oh, I hate this part, or, oh, I got to put this paperwork together, this form, and send it to them. And then I'm like, well, that's what gets you the job, the money. You send them the agreement, the invoice, all the details. Why would you hate that part? That's about an exchange. And so I do believe in the manifestation part. So, like, to your point again, believing you will find the right position, and you do have to do the work, but the mindset is also key.
I have a perfect manifestation story really quickly. 2012, and it has nothing to do with the job. It has everything to do with the rest of my life, which is Madonna. 2012, she was on tour. She had what she called the triangle, where it was free. She pulled people in, and they were like, her fans was right up front in the little triangle. They ended up calling the triangle bitches. That was not her name towards it, but she ended up calling them anyways. So there was I applied. Obviously, you can tell I've been applying for jobs. I entered the contest to win, and every morning I would wake up and say, I'm going to win that contest, and I'm going to be a triangle bitch. And I said it every single day until they announced it, and I won. So there you go. So I was a triangle bitch on November 11th in Madison Square Garden in 2012.
Wow. So not only though did you say it, but you had to apply, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you do, as far back to jobs, you have to put the work in. Like, to your point, no one's going to knock on your door and say, no, you're going to get, like, I've had many people say, oh, I have an in, I have not. There's a lot of vendors that I worked with said, hey, reach out to us. Nothing's come of that. You have to put the work into it. It's nice to have those resources. Not everyone is going to come to fruition for you. Not everyone's going to work out and give you a job. You still have to put in the hours. So.
Yeah. And I will give, and I know you're going to probably be like, all right, enough, Janine, with the networking or the connecting part. But I will say this about this. I personally do believe that most times that's what gets us, like, for me, like, clients, but also work, because I feel like you never, maybe not always, right? But like you're saying, with some of these jobs that are already filled, or they've got like 2 or 3 internal candidates. So that you have to go through that, obviously, because you're doing what you need to do. You're doing the right thing, applying for these jobs. But sometimes I think things just work out in a funny way, where, like, you might be, who knows, maybe Jim will, you guys will go out to dinner and meet somebody, and someone at that dinner will be like, wait, what do you do? Oh, because, my wife works for, Acme XYZ company, and I know they have a couple positions. I do firmly believe in that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's just happenstance. It just happens. But, like, I feel that's where I say, when you put yourself out there, the more people you know, the more you're connected to. It's kind of like this whole network that could end up supporting you. And like I said, and then you contribute to it as well.
Yeah. And your resume is a piece of paper. Like, how well do you come across? It could be the best resume on the planet. It's still a piece of paper that they don't really know who you are until they see you physically. And that's why, like, I'm excited to have an interview tomorrow, because at least if I don't get a position or I don't get the next interview, at least it'd be like, okay, then we weren't a right fit or we weren't good. But by just getting no response from a piece of paper that says what I've done or what I do, it's less fulfilling than it is when I actually have an interview and say, okay, this is we weren't a right fit, or, oh, we're moving on. So it's more of that interaction with people. So you're right. You're right. As much as I begrudgingly say it out loud, people interaction is important, Janine.
I'm all about it. I'm all
I
about it.
know. I know.
And honestly, you make I'll start to wrap up, but the good point about the paper and like putting yourself on paper. But I'm surprised, given the state of our technology, I should say, I wouldn't be surprised if it's right around the corner that forget that regular resume. Can't we just get into, won't it be like virtual reality, or there'll be like our avatar where you'll be on there and you could be dancing like, you must be my lucky star. And then you could like have a whole video of yourself.
There are some resumes out there that I've seen like do have pictures of people and it's just pictures of them doing their job and stuff. Hey, I'm not judging, to each their own. I'm not there yet. It wasn't until like 2 years ago when I applied for a promotion at the job that I had, which I did get, did I update my resume, and it was like old school from I had like I was in college and I was in a fraternity. Like didn't actually say that, but like those points were on there. And I think I sent to you, and Janine's like, you don't need to put that now. I'm like, okay, you graduated in 1993. Get that off. I'm like, okay, thank you, Janine.
Yeah, well, and I can say these things, so I will freely admit since I've been working for myself, I have not applied for jobs. So I will tell you, if I had to, or if I decided, let's put it that way, in a couple of months that I wanted to apply for things, I'd be like, holy shit, I've got to relearn this. And I will say, I'll give a shout out to a gentleman I know, Bill Leonard. Leonard Workforce Solutions, he gives tips, and I've watched his presentation where he's given to I think college students even, about applying for jobs and like the certain things that should be on there. And I was like, wow, my resume does not fit this bill at all. So
Yeah.
if I did want to put myself out there, I would really have work to do. So I believe me, I admire you. I admire anyone looking for a job, and I've seen friends posting on Facebook and LinkedIn, and some of the trials and tribulations. It's not easy, but because I love you and care about you, I have been sending out good vibes into the universe, and I have faith that you will get just the right position.
Thank you. It's much appreciated. I appreciate all your income. I was going to say income. Janine, your check is late this month. I don't know your input, because I have sent you my resume, and you're like, giving me tips and hints and reaching out to people and posting things on LinkedIn. So I appreciate that.
You become a more valuable potential employee the more you know. And it could even just be in an interview where you're like, well, I just took this workshop and I learned this, and I think that's helpful or fascinating. And then you look like someone who wants to keep learning, which is always better than someone that's like, nah, no thanks, that's not for me.
That's how I don't
know how many people are being interviewed like
I'll be
that,
chewing gum and I'll be like, nah, don't want your job.
Oh my God. I know that you need to find something and you want to find something, but that would be funny.
You want me to do that?
I would love to see the interview where you're like, nope, not going to happen.
Not for me, with my nail file. Like, is this going to be exciting at all? So yes, no, I would never do that. But again, humor, as Janine promotes so beautifully every single day of her life. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, we're gonna have to do a follow-up session in the coming months when you're settled there, and we could talk about the city of brotherly love and how you're settling in there. And there's so many wonderful parts of Philadelphia. Now, I know there are some scary parts as well, but there's like so many interesting neighborhoods and all kinds of cool stuff. And I look forward to visiting you, and I look forward to hearing about what you guys, discover, some of your favorite haunts as you spend a little bit more time there.
It absolutely, and I look forward to that, and we'll reconnect in months and talk all about Philadelphia. I'm excited about the 4 amusement parks that I'm very close to. But Jim and I did have a conversation, like, before Janine comes, the first time she came to Raleigh, we really didn't know what the hell we were doing. And Oliver, you were showing her where your doctor's offices were. I was like, yes, I know. We'll be better prepped, better prepared. So another reason not to come now, because I'd be like, All right, that's Jim's doctor. I don't have one yet. So,
Oh, I'll be like, don't worry, bitch. I'm coming with the full agenda. One thing I will tell you I want to do. I have yet to go to the Philadelphia Flower Show. And every year I see people post pictures and I'm like, I want to go to that. And I think Scranton actually even runs like bus trips to it. It looks beautiful. And I don't know why every year I forget to look into it. The other place I've been at, but it's been many years, and I don't know if there's something that you and Jim would want to go to, Longwood Gardens is again, I don't know, you might be like, interesting flowers, yeah, okay. I don't know if that excites you, get your motor running, but um, I don't even know how many acres it covers. I was there and it has been, geez, when I went on a girls trip there, and I want to say 20 some years ago. It's, they've got indoor greenhouses, they've got beautiful stuff outdoors. And I believe, especially at Christmas time, they do a beautiful display. So that's something we can put on our bucket list, of our Philadelphia bucket list.
absolutely, yeah. Whatever you want to add, as long as I know in advance to research it, we're good. But we'll be better. I, I mean, to your point, Scranton. I came to Phillies games all the time with my family. I saw Madonna here numerous times. I've stayed in the city. So it's not like I'm completely. I did all the Liberty Bell and all that stuff to her. So it's not like I'm like completely new like Raleigh was. So it would be a little bit better. But we did joke about that. Like we should be a little bit more prepared for when we have visitors, so we can show them some good times and not just where your doctors are. So
That is pretty funny though. Like, and here's my podiatrist, and over there is my
I don't
nutritionist.
have a podiatrist yet, so I'll
You better
get one
get
and I'll show you where
cracking.
the office is.
You better get cracking, because the first thing I'm going to have on my list. All right, when are we going to do the tour of your doctor's offices? All righty. Well, thank you so much, Oliver. I know this is a topic. Obviously, every single one of us has had transitions in life, changes in life. Looking for a job is something, if you're an adult person, you've been through this. And, if you've had growth in your career, you know what it's like looking for new positions. And it obviously is a challenge. And I wish you the best, Oliver. And I hope anyone listening, if you have tips for Oliver or any kind of leads or anything, please feel free to reach out to me and I will connect you with Oliver, or I will share the resources if you do have some, and or even post them on my social media for other people who might be looking. If you've got some things like, hey, here's some things that I tried that work, please do not hesitate to reach out.
Well, thank you. And if Madonna's listening, if you need an assistant, I'm available.
Bitch, if Madonna's listening, I'm like, I need a podcast sponsor, honey. And even if I'm just like, okay, I could go on tour with you, then of course you'd have to come with me, and we could
Oh,
do like interviews behind stage with her backup dancers, with her makeup
perfect.
people, with her costume people. Okay, now you've got me on a
So
roll.
anyway, all jokes aside, thank you for letting me speak about it. And thank you for all that you do to promote me. Because you know that I try to promote you as much as possible. Thank you for letting me talk about it and coming on your podcast. It's always a joy talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much.
You're like, I know.
I know. Sorry, I didn't mean for that. Be like, of course.
Of course.
Of course it's been a
Of course
pleasure
it's
for
nice
you.
because I'm wonderful.
No, I don't know. I just kind of was like in a lull there. I'm like, uh-huh. No, you know
I'm
me.
sorry to bore you.
Are you done yet? Next. I'm teasing you. No, I love talking to you. This is why we can no more than you and Gab. We can gab and gab and gab. And of course, we've known each other since we're 14. And as I've said this many times, Oliver is truly still probably the only person who would always make me like snort laugh, like get into these jags of just total laughter. And that's a good kind of friend to have. You know what I'm saying? So thank you for sharing. I do believe this is important stuff for people to hear and to talk about, and maybe they can share some of their tips and some of their experiences, because it is important. So in the weeks ahead, I had mentioned this, Jennifer Estelle will be a guest. She owns Endless Mountain Vineyards, and she has the Be and Let Live project. It's a nonprofit that promotes education around spaying and neutering pets, and trying to remove the stigma around pit bulls. She has a beautiful dog who is so sweet and just like a little boss bitch. She was just so cute when I was at the vineyard. She was like a little attitudey and just adorable and really sweet. So Jennifer will be on talking about her giant leaps. She bought this vineyard and getting it off the ground and everything. It's an exciting venture that I'm really happy to introduce her to you, my listeners. I'm also going to have Lisa Regau. She is a nurse. She is a lifestyle management coach. So she'll be talking about a lot. We're going to dig into one of my favorite topics, perimenopause and menopause, because a lot of ladies have a lot of symptoms and not a lot of help and support from the medical community. So she'll be coming up in June. And of course, there will be many other fabulous women that I will introduce you to every week. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart and the bottom of my wine glass.